Greetings, everyone. Did you think the Game of Thrones finale sucked? Are you tired of waiting for the winds of winter? Do you want a story that actually ends one day? Then let me introduce you to A Symphony of Frost and Flame, a medieval fantasy drama set in the great kingdom of America. The series features familiar characters such as Barack Obama, Joe Biden, Donald Trump, Abraham Lincoln, Jordan Peterson, and many more. For added immersion, the series is fully voice-acted. So join us, ladies and gentlemen, as we explore a story full of political intrigue, plots, backstabbing, and war. One by one, they threw themselves at the gold-clad warrior, with no coordination to their attacks. It was a dance with no rhythm, and their blades were easily deflected. 3 against 1, good odds for any knight worthy of the title.
Your son is a fine warrior, my friend,
Lord Barack Obama said.
The finest in the realm,
Responded Lord Joe Biden. Indeed, there were few men who could hold their own against Sir Hunter Biden. So talented was he with a blade that it seemed an extension of his own arm. And there was no lack of honor or chivalry about his character either. The two of them leaned against the balcony, far above the castle courtyard, overlooking the knights and squires testing their might against Sir Hunter.
You mean to have him fight in the King's tournament?
Barack asked, but he knew the answer. The King's name day was quickly arriving, and there would be no lack of hopeful young men storming to the capital to earn their glory in battle.
I mean to have him win it, and by the looks of it, quite easily.
Barack smirked. It brought joy to his heart to see such pride on his friend's face, joy and sadness. It brought memories of the late Prince Robert Lincoln, who had fallen in battle not many years ago, leaving the fate of House Lincoln uncertain.
My lords,
A voice sounded from behind them. It was the king's own messenger.
the king has called for an urgent meeting of the royal council and requests your presence immediately.
The two lords looked at one another with concern, as urgent meetings seldom brought with them good news. But perhaps this time it would be different. Could the queen be pregnant, bearing hope of an heir to the throne?
And what is the nature of this meeting?
The king would not say.
Bad news, then, Barack thought to himself. He exchanged another look with Lord Joe and could see in his eyes that they shared the same thought. But now was no time for pondering. With steeled minds, they made their way towards the council chambers. The stairs of White Castle were long, and their steps many. In their youth, the two lords would have climbed them easily. But they were well past their prime, and their endurance had taken a toll. One would be forgiven for thinking that the two of them would never ascend these stairs, were it not for the fact that they had done so 100 times before.
I tell you, Barack, these stairs are too long.
Joe uttered as they reached the top. Barack gave him a pat on the back and an approving smile. He would have said it himself had he been but a moment quicker. The doors to the council chamber were already open with voices flowing from inside. They were evidently not the first to arrive. Determined, they stepped through, ready for whatever bad news came their way. In the middle of the room was a wide rectangular wooden table with 3 chairs on either of the longer sides. Opposite of the door sat King Abraham Lincoln, first of his name, a frail man who had ruled great America for most of Barack's life, and whose years had unquestionably begun to catch up with him. At the king's right side sat Lord Jordan Peterson, the royal advisor. A rarity among lords, as he was lowborn with no family name, raised to the rank of lord by the king himself. Though he was good friends with the king, he had not gained the same trust from any of the great lords, with most viewing him as nothing more than a power-grubbing parasite. To the king's left stood Sir John Cena, captain of the Royal Guard, a tall, muscular, and stoic man, whose skills with a sword no one would question, not even Sir Hunter.
"You're late,"
said Lord Donald Trump, who sat opposite Lord Jordan, a large and boisterous man with few redeemable qualities. His demeanor was that of someone believing themselves to be a gift from the gods, Draped in a cloak of an exotic material from a land far to the east, there was no doubt that gold was in abundance for House Trump. His hair, on the other hand, indicated quite the opposite.
Apologies, Your Grace. I hope we have not kept you waiting for long,
said Barack as he took a seat next to Lord Donald.
Your arrival is quite timely. I am sure Lord Donald would have said the same even if you had been the first to enter the room.
Sir John scoffed at the king's comment, quickly averting his gaze toward his feet to hide his smile. Lord Donald, however, did not seem amused.
I have called you here today to discuss a matter that I had honestly hoped would never be necessary. As you all know, I have no living heir. Ever since Prince Robert died, Queen Mary and I have tried our best to produce another child, but with no success. After conferring with the healers, they have concluded that I am no longer fertile.
Barack furrowed his brows. Was the king truly unable to father a child? He had heard of women losing their ability to reproduce with age, but not men. Surely this must be a mistake, he thought to himself.
Your Grace, forgive me my ignorance, but could it not be the Queen who is the infertile one?
The king locked eyes with Barack for a brief moment. He did not answer the question, but that was enough for Barack to understand. Any hope the king may have had was long gone by now.
The healers have assured us that the fault does not lie with the Queen.
Lord Jordan had their full attention now, especially that of Lord Donald, who leaned forwards in his chair and gave him a condescending look.
I'm confused, Jordan. Are you our new king? I specifically remember Lord Barack asking His Grace a question, yet you were the one to answer. Did the royal messenger perhaps forget to bring me these news?
Donald kept his stare on Jordan, but was not met with one in return. The king let out a frustrated sigh, turning his head towards Donald, and the plump lord sheepishly lowered his head in response.
As you must all have gathered by now, when I die...
The king paused. His eyes teared up, and Barack could already deduce what the next words out of his mouth were going to be. Words that no person, be they nobility or not, would ever want to utter.
My bloodline comes to an end.
Silence blanketed the room as not a single one of them dared move a muscle. Was it the shock of the news that left them paralyzed? Or perhaps it was their fear of saying or doing something that might be perceived as inappropriate. Lord Jordan did not speak up this time, his eyes fixated on the table. Perhaps the comments from Donald had served as a deterrent, who himself had proceeded to drink from his cup without pause to escape the tension. Barack bent his head backward and stared at the ceiling before turning his head towards Joe. Finally mustering the courage to break the silence, Joe leaned forward.
But, Your Grace, what does that mean for the succession of the throne?
I have decided that upon my death the throne will pass on to Queen Mary.
Lord Donald choked on his drink, coughing and spilling drops of wine over himself. Lord Barack was glad he did not have his own wine cup, as he was sure he would have followed Donald's example if he did. The Queen inheriting the throne. Has he gone mad? Barack thought to himself. Lord Joe did not seem all too amused either. His face lit up with confusion and befuddlement.
Your Grace, far be it from me to question your judgment, but...
Far be it from you indeed. She has been by my side my entire life, and I can think of no one else with a better claim.
The king snapped back. His words rang true. It had been so long since great America had a ruler of a house other than Lincoln that finding the right heir would be difficult, if not impossible.
But, Your Grace, House Todd is a minor one. I can think of at least a dozen great houses that have served House Lincoln faithfully for generations. 3 of them are sitting in this very room.
I will not hand over the throne to some house that has no ties to my family. Queen Mary will raise children that may not have my blood, but they will have my name. The House of Lincoln will live on, and in 100 years or so no one will ever remember that their blood is not truly mine.
Lord Donald slammed his fist on the table, spilling his drink and drenching the wood in wine. In a fury, he rushed to his feet, tipping his chair backward and sending it crashing to the ground.
This is outrageous. Not 2 generations ago, House Todd did not even exist. And now you expect us to bow before them as they ascend the throne?
Sir John made his way across the room and placed a hand on Lord Donald's shoulder.
Sit down, my lord, and do not raise your voice to the king,
he said with a calm voice, picking up the fallen chair and forcing Donald back into his seat.
I plan to make this proclamation in front of all the great houses on my name day after the tournament.
But, Your Grace, the other houses will never accept this.
The king smiled, and for the first time that day, a glimmer of hope sprung to his eyes.
Which is why I trust that you, my loyal advisers, will aid my queen and ensure that stability remains within the realm. Show the other houses the right path and enforce my laws.
Barack leaned back in his chair. He had not the heart to deny the king his wish, but the task that was laid upon them was nigh impossible. If the other houses revolted, the houses of Obama, Biden, and Trump would not have enough men to quell an uprising. Hours went by as the lords bickered back and forth about the futility of the succession plan. The sun had set and the candles were struggling to hold on, having formed impressive pools of wax around them. Finally, the king rose from his chair with an unsatisfied look on his face.
The hour is late, and I grow tired. Lord Jordan, speak some sense into these fools. Sir John, see me to my chambers.
King Abraham and Sir John made their way toward the chamber doors, stopping as the king grabbed a handle.
And if I find Lord Jordan dead here on the morrow, I will have you all hanged,
the king said, finally leaving the room. The three lords turned their eyes toward Lord Jordan, who looked meek and uncomfortable in his chair, and for good reason, as the disdain most lords had for him did not inspire him with confidence.
I would sooner toss myself from the castle walls than listen to any of the shit pouring out of your mouth, Jordan.
Lord Donald rose to his feet, looking towards Barack and Joe. They all seemed to be thinking the same thing, as none of them had any desire or intention to entertain Jordan with their attention. Barack and Joe rose, and the three made their way to the council doors. Just as Donald opened them, Lord Jordan finally spoke up.
You three seem to have forgotten that Queen Mary does not possess the ability to produce children by herself, and when the king dies, she will be in need of a new husband.
The three of them stopped dead in their tracks, with something evidently having lit up in their minds. Donald closed the doors again, and all of them found their way back to their seats. Suddenly, listening to Jordan's words did not seem like such a bad idea.